Greetings and welcome to the broadcast. This is MBA 720, Technology Strategy and Business Innovation, and we are high atop Chapel Hill up here in the studio. Once again, welcoming you to the broadcast. Wow, in our last session, we looked at organizations. We looked at super organizations. Everything from Pixar to IDEO, to the CDC, Red Cross, amazing organizations that are able to accomplish incredible things routinely. For them, it's no problem to innovate. It's no problem to improvise. It's no problem to pivot. And these organizations do incredible things. And it's really interesting in reading some of the articles that are coming out now in Wall Street Journal about how some of the best businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic are pivoting, are moving very quickly into manufacturing things that are greatly needed and things that are desired and are missing in the supply chain now. Amazing stories of companies that are doing this. And I think this is going to be sort of the clarion call from now on to build companies that are rapidly adaptable to circumstances. And we suddenly plan for the unexpected, the truly unexpected. And it doesn't mean that businesses become paranoid or that leaders become paranoid. That's not the point. The point is utilizing technology, utilizing know-how, utilizing flexible processes so that we can adapt to the changing marketplace. And it's amazing to see how that is occurring. Well, these organizations have done this for years. And we talked about them a little bit, and we talked about that process piece of it. And that's where we're at right now, is deep in the process. Last time we were together on the broadcast, we talked about intelligence and we talked about narrative building. I showed you some examples from Disney and from Apple about how very innovative companies can go in and examine what is possible. And those are the three words that I told you to hang on to. What is possible? What might we do? Not what did we do last time? What do most of the businesses in our industry do? But what is possible? And we really unpacked that. And we really looked at it from the standpoint of narrative building. Two examples. One, the Disney example in Star Wars of how they might tell an amazing story. And Apple with the iPod project, how might you build something? Not just an electronic device, but how might something be built? And there are many dimensions that could have been chosen for build. The two that I demonstrated in the last broadcast were insourcing versus outsourcing, which was how we might build it or how we might source it. And the other one was the compatibility piece of it, the idea that we make it compatible with only Apple or we make it compatible with anything. And you really examine those extremes, you research them to try to understand what is the best alternative, what is the best thing that we might do. And so it's really important to think this way because we're not conditioned, we're not brought up, we're not wired to think divergently. We're actually wired to think convergently. We gather information, we form opinion, and we try to make the world around us seem sensible and try to make it fit with our own beliefs. And that's okay. It's survival. We all do it, yours truly included. But we have to, every morning, I think, get up and think a little differently. We have to almost coach ourselves every day to do things just a little bit differently. And that's really the crux of what we're in here in terms of understanding the content of this course and where we're going. Now, well, let's talk about today's session. Today's session gets us into the heart of design. Design is awesome. How do you design something? How do you create it? I've spent a career in design. Started with engineering, started with programming, robotics design, all the way through research that I've done with Apple and Disney. on how you might design something. Design is an incredible field. It's something that, for me, mysteriously never really entered business education. I can remember going through my MBA and wondering why there wasn't more on design. Why did I not see more courses, more content on design? And it had really not come into vogue. I think that really changed about 10 years ago when companies like IDEO started spanning the design of electronic devices and technology and started designing business processes. And design became more of a business concept. And now I think it has mainstreamed into business education. And today we're going to really unpack it and take it apart and take a look at it. At the heart of it are analytics. It's very hard to design something without data, without some idea of what you're designing for, what might be valued in the design, what might not be valued in design. And you can be surprised. You can be very, very surprised. And I'll give you an example of this. Certainly one of the design concepts in the Apple iPod was music quality. There was a big debate about that, about what music quality should be and how valuable was it. Now, I will say that part of my training and part of the expertise that I had acquired through experience and education was encoding music and trying to improve its quality. Basically, there were a lot of recordings out there, and they were done in basic analog form, and that recording quality was not as good as it could be. I mean, some of the Beatles collection were actually done on 8-track recording equipment, which at the time was state-of-the-art, but certainly was nothing near 64-track recording and digital recording. The technology now is amazing compared to that. And so the idea was, could we take old recordings and the new digital recordings and improve them and create a perfect listening experience? And I'll have to say, I was certainly hand held high volunteering for that aspect of the project. I thought that was going to be interesting. I thought it was going to be really cool, and it was. And we built some prototypes based on high music quality, the highest music quality, but those devices looked like boxes. They were tethered to noise canceling headphones, and they gave you the most amazing musical experience you could ever want. To this day, I don't think I've heard music sound quite like that. The problem is that you would sit in your easy chair or your happy space. So me here next to Baby Yoda with our headphones on listening and just thinking, oh my gosh, that is the best Rush album of all time. If you don't know who Rush is, check them out. Very, very big band, Canadian band. Or that was absolutely the best music I have heard. It's just so rich. It sounds like you're in the studio. I was listening to old recordings of Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic. These are classic rock songs and the Rocks album. And you could hear the fingers slide up and down the guitar. You could hear every nuance of the music. And for someone like me, who obviously enjoys music, this was just amazing. The problem was you had to sit stationary. The device was not something that was mobile. This was tested out in the marketplace and people hated it. And I mean, really hated it. It wasn't just, well, we might buy this or how interesting. We didn't even get, this isn't interesting. People just said, no, I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy it. I don't think this would be worth the price. It doesn't fit with what I consider to be an amazing musical experience. And that was the goal, to revolutionize the experience of listening to music. It wasn't to build a device. Again, a very ambitious goal, hallmark of a good organization. And so amazingly enough, we go back to the drawing board and say, well, it's obviously not that. And so the question becomes, what is it? And that really gets into what I call perseverance in an organization. You suffer a setback. I think that many organizations, when they would have encountered that initial negative reaction, would have given up, said, well, we're done. good organizations, the innovative ones, you just almost count on setbacks. You know that things are not going to go perfect for you. Now, if they do, all well and good. We got lucky that time. Typically, no. Typically, there's going to be a problem. Typically, there's going to be a setback. And this was a setback in terms of music quality, because there were many people, that, and me included, who felt like there was a lot of money to be made and a lot of ground to be covered and a lot of happiness to be gained by really creating the best music, the best quality music, but nobody wanted it. Well, you might see where the story's going. What they wanted, what the market wanted, was mobility. An amazing music experience was not to listen to high quality music. All well and good, but that wasn't the amazing experience everybody wanted. The amazing experience everybody wanted was to be able to listen to the music that they wanted to listen to wherever they were. Mobility. So MP3, MP4, these standards that were out there, that they were fine. It was okay. People could suffer, to me, the indignity of not perfect music for mobility. And it was funny, you get that, and then you go back and you start the design process again, and you build it around mobility, and that's how a product like iPod is born. That's how it happens. It's not, hey, here's this wonderful idea, we get it, and suddenly, boom, the product appears. It just doesn't happen that way. There's a lot of iteration that goes into it, a lot of experimentation, and a lot of data collection. And that's where we're gonna set sail today. I'm gonna show you how it occurs, show you how to think about it, and show you what I like to think of as analytics gone wild. There is a world of analytics out there. There are more analytics coming our way. That doesn't mean that we know how to interpret them. We've got to be able to interpret them. There's an aspect of cleverness that goes along with the analytics. You can grab a lot of analytics, but do you understand the story behind them? That's the question you've got to ask yourself. And I think it's the most key question of the design phase of innovation. In the intelligence phase, we can gather so much information. We can gather so much data. We can gather so many analytics. But what is the story behind them? What is the linkages of cause and effect? What is that? And how do we get at that story? And then how do we start to develop products? How do we start to think about what that story means? So let's dive in and start thinking about analytics. To me, a fun ride, and a ride that is ever evolving. So let's take a look here and jump into our presentation. I think you're going to like this. It's going to show you some things that you will expect, and I think some things that will surprise you. The articles of interest as we go into this, certainly the Disruptive Innovation article by Christensen is very informative here. Throughout the intelligence, design, and choice discussion that we have together, the article that is included in the readings on tribal innovation really informs. And of course, it's all based on the book, Ideas in Innovative Organizations. All of this is based out of research and experience. There's no guesswork here, and let's go in and take a look at it. So again, if you think about what design is, it is the intersection of analytics and creativity. There's no doubt that one without the other is a bit risky. You've got to go out and figure out what is valued in the marketplace. It will surprise you. Sometimes the marketplace wants a simpler product. And I have to say that's one of the design principles that I hang on to constantly when I'm working with organizations is, can we create something that's simpler, rather than something that's more complex, something that adds more features that aren't really desired. We really want to go in and see if we can find something that simplifies. I'm a huge fan of that. It's something that I've really, I think, got sort of got turned on to that concept in the early years at Apple, where you would be able to do things simply. Again, just clicking a word and then clicking bold, just to make things simpler, to make it more intuitive, was really a great design concept that I think holds even in today's environment. Well, when you go in and start thinking about any organization, let's start to put together all the things that you've learned in your MBA. It's about time to do that. One of the things that's interesting about going through an MBA is you may think to yourself, well, I'm taking this course, I'm taking that course, and I have so many credit hours gained, and I have so many credit hours to gain before I graduate. That's the way I thought about it. And, you know, it's easy to do. But what you really have to start doing at this point when you're into the electives is really start to ask yourself, what does it all mean? What is all of this that I'm taking? What does it mean, and how do I put this all together? And so what you want to do here is start to think about organizations and the markets that they go into as a chain of logic, okay? A chain of logic. Now what you see before you here in this diagram, it represents, of course, the chain of logic. Now, let's not start at the bottom right. Let's go to the top left. Outcomes. The outcomes you chase. That was what we talked about last time when we started to build narratives and started to ask ourselves what is possible. The outcome you chase is your strategy, the products that you make, the revenue you generate, the goodness that you create in a marketplace. These are all part of outcomes. Now, outcomes can be very obvious, or outcomes can be very tricky. As I told you before, certainly in the early days of the iPod, that outcome was a little trickier than it might seem today. Is it perfect music? Is it something like the old 70s boom boxes and towering stereo speakers? Is it more an intimate experience, meaning that it's the listener in noise canceling headphones that is listening to the music for some meaning? Is it a shared experience where people listen together like a concert? That outcome, as far as what iPod would be, was really unknown. However, there was a lot of research and there was a lot of effort that went into determining what that perfect outcome was, which really got into mobility. And that became a real design concept there. So it's really important to fix that outcome, because what most organizations do is they go to the bottom right and they start initiatives, they start building stuff, and they hope it results in a good outcome. Now, I know that you're going to find that hard to believe. When you're out in your organizations, when you're out in the working world, email me back or hit me on LinkedIn and say, man, I can't believe it. I saw it and I couldn't believe it. But it's there. Organizations basically spring initiatives and hope for good outcomes. Now, there's got to be a compass between the initiatives that you start, and initiatives. Again, this is your resources. This is the money you invest, the management decisions you make, all the things that organizations do to chase those outcomes. The marketing that you put in place, the supply chain you put in place, all the stuff you've talked about in your MBA, those are your initiatives. You set all that up. You organize for competition, and you're chasing a particular outcome, be it a product market, a certain level of profit. Hopefully, as we talked about last time, honorable profit is what I hope companies chase out there. But we got to have a compass. We got to have this piece of navigation, and that's what sits in the middle there. We gather data. We turn that data into analytics, which are meaningful patterns, Then we develop key performance indicators. How far away are we from our target? How far off the path are we? And then what do we do to get back on the path? Now, as you can see, these things inform each other, the three pieces in the middle, data, analytics, and key performance indicators. They inform each other and they sort of form a wheel that is constantly spinning between data, analytics, and key performance indicators. That's a huge piece of what's going on in business these days. Businesses really want to understand that wheel. They want to be able to use advanced technology. A lot of the things that we talked about at the beginning of the course, data visualization, machine learning, all of these things to try to generate that middle piece, that chain of logic. And what you're hoping is that that chain of logic, the data, the analytics, the key performance indicators, are helping your initiatives meet the outcomes. Now, in a perfect world, when your initiatives are the right initiatives, your marketing plan is the right marketing plan, your supply chain is the right supply chain, and your analytics are telling you how close you are to your desired outcomes, this is a beautiful thing. This is absolutely a wonderful thing. The business is humming when all of this is aligned. The problem that you have is that these things get out of line. Now, sometimes that can be from an external shock. So let's just talk about the world as we're living in it now. One of those shocks could be a pandemic. The pandemic will throw this chain of logic off. So let's go to the company I discussed earlier in North Carolina that was building component parts for NASCAR. Great business. They knew what their outcomes were. They had prediction models of when these parts would fail, when they would be needed to build additional parts. They had their supply chain locked up. They had their sales locked up. Everything's great. Pandemic hits. Suddenly, there is no demand for that outcome. Cars aren't racing. Nobody knows when they will be racing again. They start racing virtually. There's no need for metal fabrication when the NASCAR races are virtual. So basically what happens is that chain of logic no longer works in the marketplace. So what the company did, and this is kind of to put this story in context of a chain of logic, is they chased a different outcome, building plexiglass so that bank tellers, essential businesses can have some shield between those that are working in those businesses and the customers. And they were able to do this in a matter of a week. I mean, that to me is just an incredible pivot. Well, that really required new initiatives. You've got to start buying different types of raw materials, set up different supply chains. The measurement, the compass there in the middle, data, analytics, and key performance indicators, is going to be different when you're building plexiglass shields versus scrap metal. They were able to get that aligned very, very quickly and target it toward their outcome. So the business pivots in a matter of a week to the new outcome, and they will be able to pivot back when the market changes. And in fact, now what they may have is one chain of logic for plexiglass that they're able to do. When NASCAR begins racing again, they will have the original chain of logic. Same manufacturing. So, see, that's the same manufacturing, same heavy manufacturing capability, just different raw material going into the initiative block there. So when you take a look at what a company is able to do or what a good organization is able to do, they're able to pivot. Now, again, some of the great organizations that we talked about before, the Center for Disease Control, the Red Cross, particularly the Red Cross, they don't know whether the next catastrophe is a flood, is it a tornado, tsunami, what might we be dealing with next? They don't know, but they're able to set up a chain of logic very, very quickly and understand how they're doing, understand whether they're hitting all their marks. And I think that is really the key piece here in modern management, is to be able to build that capability. And, you know, even for ourselves, if we apply this to ourselves, we develop strong chains of logic in terms of the outcomes we try to achieve for ourselves, our goals, our educational goals, our professional goals, and our initiatives. And we set this up for ourselves. The grades you make, the contacts you make, the promotions you get, the raises you get or that you don't get are the compass in between the initiatives that you have and the outcomes you're trying to achieve. And you really hope that that's going to be logical. I have a dear friend, love him, bless his heart, as we say. And he wanted to be a professional musician. He is a professional musician. He plays well enough. Is he as good as stars that play on big stages? Not even close. Not even close. And he also had this outcome of becoming rich by playing in small cafes and clubs. He wanted to do that. Well, you can see his chain of logic, bless his heart, is not going to hold together. And it was amazing that I spoke to him recently, and he was amazed that as he gets closer to retirement, that he doesn't have any retirement money, and he hopes that somehow he will be able to produce that retirement money, or that it'll be produced for him. I didn't have the heart to tell him that that's not the way it happens, that you have to make income to get Social Security. That's a basic premise of the system, and that perhaps he should have thought of something different along the way. Anyway, even personally, we develop these chains of logic, and we hope that they're sound, that our initiatives are leading to outcomes, and that the guides that we're using to test whether the things we're doing are resulting in the outcomes are valid. So that's a chain of logic. Now you can immediately start to apply this to companies that you're studying here in your MBA, companies that you've worked for, or just reading the Wall Street Journal, companies that they talk about. And ask yourself, is there a flaw in the chain of logic? Or conversely, is their chain of logic solid? Or if it's an entrepreneurial company that has discovered some great new way of business, you might say, well, they've adopted a chain of logic that is new and novel in the business world. And the company is thriving upon that. This really encapsulates your journey through an MBA, and then starts to marry it to why a company might be innovative and another company might be stuck in the mud or be non-innovative. It's hard for companies to move off of a proven chain of logic. I want to pause there for a second. I want you to think about that. So if you drifted away, come back right now. It's hard for companies to move off of their chain of logic when outcomes in the marketplace shift, when the marquee product is no longer selling. What companies tend to do is double down on the existing chain of logic rather than explore a potential new way of doing business. It's really the design trap. Sometimes we design things that work so well, we can't move off of them when they start to fail us. It's really, really tough. We want to think that chains of logic are going to last forever and ever. So let's take a look at this incident. What happens many times is there's a shift in an outcome. Something new hits the market. Now take a look at the top portion there, the existing chain of logic. We're humming along fine. Everything is great. The world looks like it will never change, but suddenly there's a change in the marketplace. Something different happens. The marketplace shifts. Now, again, going back to the days at Apple and iPod, the shift was digitization of music and really media as a whole. That was the shift. Suddenly, music that was analog based, that existed on flat discs of vinyl, was moving into the age of CD. And at this point, when this started happening, I was sort of at the point in my life where I had seen vinyl discs. I knew they existed. My parents collected vinyl discs, and I had bought a couple of them myself. But the move to CDs started happening, and to me, it was just like, why would you want a huge disc and a needle on it when you can just have a CD that you put into a drive and it plays perfect music? You never had to worry about scratches or anything like that. To me, it was very logical, but there was a base of people that loved the old technology, in particular the music industry itself. But when it goes digital, suddenly it doesn't have to live on a CD. It can live on a computer. It can live on a network. It can be shared. It can be emailed. It can be transferred. It can be downloaded. It can be uploaded. All of these things are possible. Well, that represents a shift in performance. There you go, the blue arrow at the top left. There are new outcomes. Customers have different expectations. The manufacturing of digital media like music is totally different. We don't have to have everything on one disc. We can add it, subtract it. We can create our own disc. What happens is a new chain of logic starts to pervade the marketplace. And we saw that. There was a company called eMusic that had taken non-copyrighted music and built huge databases that could be freely downloaded. And it really gave you the idea that there was a new model starting to move in the marketplace. Going back to the metal fabrication company for NASCAR, the new outcome in the marketplace, the thing that's demanded, is plexiglass protection. We've got manufacturing that can take advantage of that. We don't have to really change so much our fixed assets to participate in the new marketplace. But that shift in outcome is really tough. Companies that have made a lot of money in their existing chain of logic would prefer that not happen, that outcome shift not happen. In fact, what they will do is spend a whole lot of money to deny that the outcome has shifted. When water started becoming the preferred beverage in the marketplace, companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi did everything they could to convince people that that was not the kind of drink that you desired. You come back home to Coca-Cola, remember the taste. Remember your childhood. Remember polar bears and Christmas time. Anything to move to that new outcome. But there was an industry that had really started to build around the outcome of hydration as the desired outcome, rather than soft drink flavor, taste, and recipe. It was amazing. That shift in performance occurs. Companies that have made money in the old chain of logic will resist it. I propose to you that this is the status in higher education. It really is. I think that certainly the existing chain of logic in business schools were courses built around very traditional things: strategy, operations, marketing, these things. But courses that really bridge those things, that are multidisciplinary in nature, that are a bit more complex and require different ways of research and thinking, I'll tell you that they're not something that are welcome in a lot of business schools. But if there are business schools that can adopt the new chain of logic, then they may move to the forefront. Take a look at the bottom left, 3 deadly responses. We can ignore the emerging chain of logic. That is typically the number one response. Just ignore it. It will go away. You will hear a lot of talk in the boardroom of, well, this is a fad. It's a fad. Don't worry about it. It will go away. People love us. Our customers love us. They would never turn their back on us. Don't believe it for a minute. They will. They absolutely will. And we're part of the issue. We're customers. There are times when I have turned my back on traditional models of business to meet new outcomes. And I'll give you an example of this that you and I can relate to. Certainly, Amazon is a new chain of logic. Online purchasing. I will never forget a friend of mine who was a very senior executive in a retail establishment say to me, nobody will buy clothes without trying them on. He certainly didn't know me very well. Now, granted, maybe I'm not the best dressed guy out there, but I got what I want, and I'm pretty happy with it. And I didn't have to go into a store. I didn't have to kind of have a salesperson, tell me, oh my gosh, you don't want that color, you want this color, on and on and on. It's a different way of looking at things. That is the first response. So it'll go away. It'll go away. Second response. Now this one is interesting. You just recast your compass, the data, the analytics, and key performance indicators to tell you that you're doing okay. Unbelievable. It happens all the time. Watch it happen. Make sure you contact me, email me, hit me on LinkedIn and say, man, Al, I saw it happen. I didn't believe it when I was going through your class, but oh my God, I saw it happen. What companies do in this case, and again, if you've got an existing chain of logic, so go up to the top there, the existing chain of logic, and the outcome shifts, your performance indicators, your analytics, and your data will start to tell you that you're not doing as well as you could. Things are off, and I'm going to show you this in just a moment. But things are off. We're not doing what we should do. It will tell you. You will know. I'm doing some research right now, and it's amazing. I've interviewed 128 executives that worked for companies where an outcome radically shifted. And it's a very simple survey. I asked executives, did you know? Or were you just caught by complete surprise? 128 responses so far have said, we knew. Yeah, we knew. The data starts coming back. It's wonky. It doesn't seem right. And so what we did is we changed our navigation beacon so that it told us we were doing okay. So you change the middle, and that is one of the deadliest responses. You just start gathering data from people that are telling you you're wonderful. Everything's okay. You'll see this in leadership sometimes. You may hear someone say, well, a leader lives in an echo chamber. What they're doing is they're only gathering people around them that tell them they're doing great. And so you're adjusting that navigation beacon, your data, your analytics, and your key performance indicators to tell you that everything is great. And that's what you do. And of course, number 3, you double down on the existing initiatives and hope. We just need more marketing. It was very interesting. The example I use in my book is Xerox. I was called in to consult with Xerox on their copier business. Nobody wanted copiers. Xerox didn't realize that Adobe PDFs were taking the place of copying, that digital documents were becoming more prevalent in the world, and that digital signatures were actually binding signatures. They didn't believe any of that. What they believed is that people wanted more copiers. And so what they did is they doubled down on their initiatives. They pushed their sales force harder. They asked for more out of them. They took their best salespeople and had them trained again and again. And it's this idea that you just, you whip a dead horse a little harder and it will run. I was just startled by this. And when I pointed this out to one of the senior executives at Xerox, I just got hammered. It's like, well, we brought you in to help us think differently about what we're doing. And you've shown us a way to think differently and we don't like it. It's really amazing. And eventually the company did adjust, but it's painful. Sometimes these outcomes shift, chains of logic start to emerge in the shifting marketplace, and incumbent companies really have a hard time to do it. You'd rather stay in that existing chain of logic. Now, don't think that you're going to be chasing fads or trends. Again, in the 128 executives, or the executives that I've interviewed in my research, they all said no, they knew the marketplace was changing. One of them was really interesting, a Nortel executive who said, yes, Cisco had found a new outcome. Cisco had pioneered this technology of voice over data networks, digitization of voice over a network. We just didn't think that it was going to come about. But our data was telling us that customers were leaving and moving to the new data networking paradigm. It was there. It was right in front of us. All of our metrics are absolutely not behaving the way they should. And we knew it was happening, but we just couldn't move. So this is an important concept to think about. It's an important idea to think about. And it's a way to think about how markets are changing and how we need to be innovative. This is the deep level of innovation, going into this and combining analytics with new outcomes to try to see what's going on. So let's jump in and take a look at these outcomes. Now, this is where disruptive innovation helps us. Take a look at this diagram. Let's go to the vertical axis. Notice that it's performance, but it's qualified. Think of this as outcomes. Performance are outcomes as traditionally defined by the industry. Yes, industries, organizations gravitate toward the outcomes and performance that they love the most, typically the things that make them look good. Now, take a look at the black arrow at the top. What you're doing over time is you're improving performance on the metrics that are traditionally defined by the organizations and industry leaders. For example, Microsoft Word for Windows, one of their big metrics is number of available features. Now that's a Microsoft metric. It's one that they measure themselves against, and it's one they think we really like, that we want word processing with more features, more fonts, more ways to footnote, lots of different things. And they build their technology to improve over time. Well, interesting data on that. If you take a look at the number of features that a typical user of Microsoft Word actually uses, it's about 2.5% of total features. Think about that. On average, a user of Microsoft Word uses about 2.5% of available features. In Excel, it's a little higher, 3.5% of available features. It's true for me. I have my basic set of features that I need, and I don't worry about the rest. I know what I need to get my projects done and get my papers written and get them out there, submitted, and hopefully published. I know how to do that. So probably in the entire time I wrote my book last year, I used about 2.5% of available features in Microsoft Word. What it means is that the company is starting to improve the technology on a metric that nobody cares about. So an incumbent might come in and produce a word processing program with fewer features, only the features you need. And they may make that program where it runs across multiple platforms, does the things that you need. And in fact, I would say it's true in presentation software. What you're seeing here in this presentation is Prezi, P-R-E-Z-I. It has fewer features than PowerPoint, but it does what I want it to do. It tells a story. But in any case, an incumbent might come in with a simpler technology, or they might be operating against a different performance metric. That's the red line. If we have a software that comes in and produces fewer features over time, then to the incumbent, it looks like the disruptor is laughable. They're not producing on our metrics so they can't matter. Now, let me go back to Coca-Cola, because this is what happened to them in the case of water. Coca-Cola is improving their performance by inventing new recipes, adding more caffeine, anything to make the drink entertaining. So what they're doing is they're progressing up the curve. They're the black arrow, improving their performance over time. Water comes into the marketplace, and water does not have caffeine. It does not have carbonation. It does not have sugar. It underperforms Coca-Cola on Coca-Cola's metric. So they're the red line. They're the red line. They are emerging in a different marketplace. And so it looks like they are fundamentally an inferior technology or an inferior product when we measure them against the performance of Coca-Cola as prescribed by Coca-Cola. Now, let me show you a magic trick. Watch this. Look at the vertical line. If we change performance in the soft drink industry away from carbonation, caffeine, and sugar content, if we change that metric to hydration, watch what happens to the arrows. Boom. Boom. I hope you saw that. Did you see that? Let me show it again just one more time because it's fun. We changed the metric away from soft drink, caffeine, carbonation, sugar to hydration. The red line outperforms. That's disruption. That's a new chain of logic. A new chain of logic has pervaded the marketplace, and now water, hydration, is the dominant metric against which soft drink companies should perform. That is disruptive innovation. It really doesn't have a whole lot to do with technology itself, to be quite honest with you. It's the outcome that the technology provides. That's what's disruptive. In all of the 7 technologies that I talked to you about, the potential for disruption is high. It's just super high in the marketplace. And that's what we're talking about. That really gets you into to me, the inner workings of innovation. It's when an outcome changes. The story goes that outcome, that new metric, and that new chain of logic is more likely to be discovered by an entrepreneurial company rather than an established company. And I buy into that a little bit. I really do. Certainly, it's going to be a lot more discernible in a super organization, the organizations that we talked about. Again, if you just go back to Children's Television Workshop, what was really interesting about the time when Sesame Street started emerging on the marketplace is that children's shows were really designed to sell products to children and to their parents. And so you had a lot of commercials on children's television that were cereal commercials. You know, buy Sugar Bombs. Tell your mom and dad to go buy Sugar Bombs and make sure that they add Coca-Cola to the Sugar Bombs. It'll be a breakfast you'll never forget. That was really the advertising that was going on at the time. And it's why Children's Television Workshop ended up on public television. What they did is they found a new outcome for children's television. That outcome was education. It was child development. It wasn't characters getting into fights or trying to entertain through traditional way. It was development, and it was something that parents flocked to, and certainly children never forgot. But that would be an outcome that was totally different from traditional broadcasting. And I'll tell you this, traditional broadcasters, they are the worst. You're going to see this. Traditional broadcasters are the worst at understanding new outcomes. They absolutely don't. They will stick with an old chain of logic until their bloody death. It is absolutely amazing how uninnovative network broadcasting is. It's really pathetic. But in any case, you can develop your own idea about how industries respond to this. But this, again, that's that improvisation. That's that pivot that I talked about earlier, being able to move when outcomes in a marketplace change. It's amazing how companies are not able to do this. Now, there is another nuance to this that is amazing, and it's one that I talk about in the book. And it's a piece of research I'm really proud of. It's interesting to take a look at a chain of logic and compare conventional wisdom, which is what an expert says about a chain of logic, and what the numbers say about the chain of logic. Now, the numbers are all the things there in the middle. There's the compass, the data, the analytics, the key performance indicators. The numbers, now catch this. If you've drifted off, if you're doing something else, come back to me now. This is important. It's all important, but this is really important. The numbers will tell you that a chain of logic is failing before experts will tell you that it's failing. And I'm including professors in that, business experts, you name it. A chain of logic will start to show weakness and start to fail in numbers before the experts tell you that it's bad. The experts always follow. So it's a main complaint I have about journals like Harvard Business Review. By the time Harvard Business Review tells you something's not working, the numbers are already telling you, danger, 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 danger. You gotta trust the analytics. They will tell you that it's not working. For example, if you're running an advertising campaign and you start to inject more money into that advertising campaign, we start to spend more in the advertising campaign, and our sales go down rather than up. That chain of logic for that brand of advertising is off. It's off. But an expert in marketing, bless their hearts, will tell you, no, it's worked. It works. Oh, my experience has been that advertising campaign has always worked. The people love it. It's just a temporary blip. Do not worry about it. Worry about it. If the numbers are off, something is wrong. Don't wait for the expert to tell you that it's off. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Certainly, we can even see this in the pandemic. We've got experts that are interpreting numbers way after the numbers have come out. It's absolutely amazing. In fact, I think you can do a whole piece of research on numbers and an expert opinion on numbers. One of the problems is sometimes you don't have the numbers. The numbers are incomplete. We don't have enough numbers to really to know what the story is. That will not stop an expert from commenting. Oh my God, it will not stop them. You put a microphone in front of anybody and they'll start commenting on stuff they know nothing about. Believe me, you've got to watch out for this. And I'm not talking about left, right, or whatever. I'm talking about anybody. It's a real danger. Microphones turn people into crazy people. So what you want to do here is really follow those numbers. And that's the irony. Models fall apart in numbers quicker than expert opinion. And that's a real imbalance, if you want to think about it that way, or a real conundrum in the marketplace. So building upon that, I developed this little matrix, and it's a fun matrix, and I think it's something that certainly I've gotten a lot of great comments on because it's just fun. Let's compare conventional wisdom to numbers, and let's put them into a frontier. And here's how the matrix works. Conventional wisdom says a chain of logic is good or successful. And the numbers, what do they say about the chain of logic? If conventional wisdom says a model is bad and the numbers say a model is bad, well, then it's obviously a march of folly. Do companies adopt chains of logic that conventional wisdom and numbers say are bad? Yes, they do. This is one of the most populated boxes. The reason they do is from pretzel logic. Although it applies to everybody else, it cannot be true for us. We're special. It's why a lot of professional teams will contract a player whose numbers are down, whose impact on previous teams has been bad, but they basically draft them or bring them onto the team anyway. You know who I'm talking about, Dallas Cowboys. And expect, well, because we're who we are, it'll work. It'll work. It'll be okay for us. And we're different than everybody else. That is the pretzel logic in March of Folly. Let's go north here. A world turned upside down. Conventional wisdom says the model will work, but the numbers are saying no, it does not work. These are chains of logic that should work based on conventional wisdom, but they do not work according to the numbers. And that's twisted logic. This is when the metrics don't line up. You're putting more money into an advertising campaign, but sales are going down. An outcome is shifted. Typically what happens is that a new chain of logic has started to enter the marketplace, but we're still riding on the old chain of logic. That's a world turned upside down. You can't figure it out. All that we know is wrong. That's typically indicative of a world turned upside down. Lightning in the bottle. This is the beautiful one. The conventional wisdom, the experts, your professors, experts in the field, say it will not work, but the numbers say that it is working. It does work. That is lightning in the bottle. It's counter logic. These are chains of logic that everybody in the industry says can't be working, but somehow they are working. It really gets into the idea. Years ago, I was in a taxi cab in Toronto, and how this conversation got started, I'll never know, but the conversation around Uber got started. Our taxi driver, he just went, he became unhinged. It'll never work. People love the reliability of a taxi cab. The industry is safe. Well, of course, the next time I was in Toronto, I saw him parked along the side of the road as I Ubered into the city. It's models that don't seem possible, but they are. They somehow work. The Weather Channel is a good example of this. 24 hours, nothing but weather. People love it. Cartoon Network is another one of these. Conventional wisdom says it can never work, but it does. This is my favorite space. When the experts say it can't work, no one will buy it. No one values that, and yet somehow they do. Yellow Brick Road is a great one. That is sound logic. That means that conventional wisdom says it's good and the numbers say it's good. This is probably all the things you learn in your MBA program. When I was going through my MBA program, again, being an engineer in an MBA program, it was great. It's something I really needed. But GE was Yellow Brick Road at the time. GE this, GE that, every class, every professor, GE. All you have to do is what GE does. Well, as you know, today, GE is probably in a world turned upside down, if not in a march of folly. And that's really the lesson you have to learn here, is that companies can move through this matrix. They can move through it fast. Something that was Yellow Brick Road can easily turn a world turned upside down. One example of this is when you take an American business model and move it overseas. That's where something that works in the United States becomes a world turned upside down when you move it to another country. This is something that Walmart has experienced again and again and again. And it was so funny. Walmart said, oh, but they will love us. Everybody loves America. And that's one of the things about being a world traveler. Certainly having a mom who's Canadian. Canadians love being Canadians. Not everybody wants to be an American. I found that Scottish people love being Scottish. People love who they are. Not everybody wants to be an American. Not everybody wants American business models. And yet we typically want to extract what we do in one market and move it to another. It's wrong. It's dangerous. We have to rethink each market as we move. So let's take a closer look at some examples of these particular types of business models. The March of Folly. Here's a great one in March of Folly. Shark tourism in South Africa. Take a look at this. In an area known as Shark Alley, boat crews throw mesh bags of ground up fish into the water. Great white sharks soon pick up the scent, shrieking with fear. Paying customers climb into the steel cage, and they're lowered into the ocean. Sounds like fun, right? There is a customer and a revenue model. This is sanctioned by the South African government. They license 12 operators to conduct these dives. The unexpected is that Cape Town beaches, which are a mecca for surfers, incredible waves there, they've been hit by a spate of gruesome shark attacks. Cage dive operators may have taught sharks to associate humans with food. Notice how no one from the boat jumped in to help. So I guess that's the message there. If you're in a cage and the shark breaks through the cage, you are on your own. You didn't get the premium package where someone's going to go in and try to help you. Interesting. When we went out and interviewed, this actually appeared in the Wall Street Journal about 10 years ago. We did some research on this, and Wall Street Journal picked it up. But we interviewed people in this business model to understand, why would you run such a business? And here's something from the policy coordinator of Cape Town. Emotionally, it's a lot harder when people get consumed. It changes impressions or perceptions. Okay, yeah. I love the terminology, when people get consumed. Where I'm from in North Georgia, we call that when people get et. But in any case, you're just justifying a terrible business model. Every time they bite the cage, they taste metal. If we're conditioning the shark to anything, it's that humans taste like metal. Okay, so again, do you see the reasoning? This is the amazing thing. We asked for a quote from Andre, one of the boat captains that we were with, and I write about this in the book. Andre was really making fun of me. He said, okay, well, it's your turn to go in the cage. And I told him, no way. I was not going into the cage. And he, sort of make fun of me, well, oh, brave Americans, and you won't go into the shark cage, you don't have any courage, on and on and on. And he asked me, he said, are you afraid? Are you afraid of a shark? And I told him, well, not if the shark is on land. You put that shark on land, and you give me a 36-ounce baseball bat, and I will be a match for the shark. But in the water, that thing is king. So I'm not going in there. And of course, from a surfer and an environmentalist in Cape Town, you can't interact with nature without affecting it. We're affecting things. We just don't know how. But it just shows you how you can rationalize anything. And that's what I'm trying to get at here. Now, you may think, well, God, certainly innovative companies would never go into a march of folly. Don't you be too sure about that. Apple did it a few years ago. What they did is they decided that everybody would want U2's new album, Songs of Innocence. And so that they would just download it into your iTunes library. Now, here is the funny thing. They consulted industry experts. They consulted potential users of this, iPod users and people that had libraries, and everybody said it's a terrible idea. People viewed their libraries like their closets. Don't go put clothes into my closet. I will choose what I want. So then what Apple did is they hired someone, a consulting firm, to go in, and they interviewed, so help me, you can't make this stuff up, fans of U2. And yes, they said, we would love this. So they did it anyway. They did it anyway. They launched this out, and it was met as an unmitigated disaster. So let's take a look at the band's response.
Now, feast your eyes on this. Now, any kids watching?
Oh,
this
gatefold, is it?
It's a long-playing record, everybody.
It is a gatefold.
No, it's a gatefold.
Yeah.
Look, there's the lads.
Yeah.
Yes. This is it. Songs of Innocence. And now, normally when bands come on, they're trying to flog an album. Right. But everyone's got it already. So it's like, what's the point? I mean, we're thrilled. We're thrilled you're here.
It's that all the people got very annoyed that it was given to them free, they now get to buy it.
But no, but that is no, but this is the madness.
This time yesterday, and that song's impregnated. I had to buy a special solution to take the song.
But no, but isn't it true? In the midweek charts, it's number 4.
Yeah.
So,
yes,
but do they not know they've already got it?
But they haven't got the vinyl.
Okay.
They haven't got the CD.
So everyone gets it on the iTunes. Right. Who talked to who? Did you go to iTunes? Did iTunes come to you?
We worked very hard on these songs and we really believed in them, but we were scared they wouldn't, people wouldn't hear them, or it's tricky these days, to be heard. And we've been around a while. Why would anyone want another U2 album? We kind of asked ourselves that question. And no.
Poor U2. Who has worse luck than U2?
There is at the back of any performer.
It's a heartbreaking story, by the way.
Stop the unforgettable fire.
It's just, look, if anyone, wanted to call time on us, we've been around a while and we just wanted to do something fresh, something that no one else had done. And, it turns out some people don't believe in Father Christmas. And they see Father Christmas in their lounge on Christmas morning. They just want to give Father Christmas a good kicking. Good kicking.
Okay, you get the idea. Here is the March of Folly. Again, this was a mix of U2 and Apple working together, and so what they wanted to do to sort of co-promote, if you will, some of the things that were going on. This was back in iPhone 6, Apple Watch, and Apple Pay. Was to give away the new U2 album or place it in everyone's playlist. And you can see the backlash. It was unbelievable. Even fans of the band found it a little intrusive that their music was put into the playlist. Yet, all data, all expert opinion said this was a March of Folly. They did it anyway. I am sure that now that you're aware of this, you can think of organizations that you're familiar with, perhaps some that you've worked with, that practice the March of Folly. It's easy to talk yourself into it. And that's what these organizations do. They basically talk themselves into something that is utterly ridiculous. So again, going back to Coca-Cola, we talked earlier about their, and this is one that was just unbelievable. Bottled water starts to make its appearance in the world, and Coca-Cola wants to hang on to their business model and to the way they do things. This is an unbelievable thing. Coca-Cola actually commissioned a study with a semi-research consulting firm that set out to prove that Coca-Cola actually is good for you, that it does not contribute to being overweight. And the Wall Street Journal got a hold of that study, and the backlash was intense. They actually tried to create pseudoscience to convince people that Coca-Cola was okay for you. If you were watching weight, don't worry about it. Drink it up. It was just an amazing faux pas on their part, but it shows you the extreme that a company will go to try to maintain a flawed or a shifting chain of logic. Absolutely amazing. Let's jump into a world turned upside down. Conventional wisdom says that things will go well, but the numbers say it will be a disaster. And let's just take a look at how that looks in data. Walmart has experienced this a couple of times. What they were trying to do at one point was squeeze as much money out of their supply chain, insisting that prices go down, pay workers minimum salary, little or no benefits, locate stores in high traffic corridors. What's really interesting is that a lot of the money they were trying to squeeze out of suppliers and workers, that's their customers as well. And so what you see here in the bottom right is an example of wonky numbers. Take a look at the blue line. The blue line is actually stock price. It's going down. The step function there are stores that are opening. So as they were opening more stores, increasing revenue, and hopefully increasing profits, their stock price is going down. That is when you know you're in a world turned upside down. You will see numbers that are wonky like this. It doesn't make sense. You're putting money in advertising and your sales are going down. A great example was NBC recently, and you may be familiar with this, but it was an incredible world turned upside down. Megyn Kelly, a very successful news anchor on Fox News, very charismatic, lots of journalistic credibility, a lawyer, does well on Fox News. And so NBC says, we'll bring her to NBC. We will put her in daytime morning. Typically, Megyn Kelly's slot was in the late evening, commentary of news that had already occurred. She was well known for being one of the anchors on a debate and badgering Donald Trump. She was seen as fair, in the middle, tough, and someone that was entertaining to watch in late night news. NBC said, well, if she is good in late night, she'll be even better on our morning show. They bet $69 million on her and gave her the morning slot. Here's how it went.
After making a name for herself at Fox News, Megyn Kelly was courted by NBC and offered a reported $23 million per year to bring her star power to the Peacock network. This made her the highest paid anchor at NBC, but unfortunately, courting Kelly may not have been the best investment. In September 2017, the network gave her a daily talk show-style gig during the 9 a.m. slot of The Today Show called Megyn Kelly Today. The show failed to bring in viewers and ratings plummeted, fueled by countless controversies. Let's take a closer look at some of the reasons Megyn Kelly's morning show has been a bit of a disaster. Done with politics. Viewers tuning into NBC for the debut episode of Megyn Kelly Today were greeted with a surprising announcement. A few seconds into the episode, Kelly declared that she would be leaving behind the politically charged coverage folks had come to expect from her.
The truth is, I am kind of done with politics for now, right? I know. You know why. It's gotten so dark and I'm just like, over.
The unexpected decision garnered a slew of criticism. The New York Times called the new Kelly awkward, and according to Page Six, an industry insider quipped, "They spent all that money on this great political anchor and journalist. If you take those things away, what are you paying for?" Deborah's diss. Kelly became the subject of major scrutiny on her first day on the job when actress Deborah Messing declared that she regretted her appearance on the show. When the former Fox News anchor welcomed the cast of Will and Grace to her studio, fans were met with a seriously cringeworthy exchange between Kelly and a superfan from the audience.
Is it true that you became a lawyer and you became gay because of Will?
When Messing was later asked about the awkward moment on Instagram, the actress set the record straight, responding, "Honestly, I didn't know it was Megyn Kelly until that morning. The itinerary just said Today Show appearance. Regret going on. Dismayed by her comments." Feud with Fonda. Just 48 hours after she was dissed by Messing, Kelly caught more heat when she asked actress Jane Fonda about plastic surgery instead of focusing on the movie the actress was there to promote.
You're not proud to admit that you've had work done. Why not?
We really want to talk about that? It wasn't like I was, upset. I was just stunned. It was so inappropriate. It showed that she's not that good an interviewer.
Kelly.
So you can see the problem here. We're done with Megyn Kelly. Take a look at the numbers. They're going to tell you the story here. The viewership is down. The Today Show ratings were down. She was so bad that she was impacting some of their better shows. And it absolutely shows up in the data. NBC had to buy her out. It was an expensive mistake. It was a world turned upside down. And again, it's that idea that you take something that works in one context and you move it to another, expecting similar or better results. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't work. An amazing thing that, and again, now that you're aware of this, next time you read the Wall Street Journal, next time you're watching business news or just watching anything, watch for the world turned upside down. Watch for the March of Folly, an organization or a group of people that try something that you just know will not work. No way, no how. It just will not work. But they try it anyway. Let's go to my favorite box, the lightning in the bottle. And we talked a little bit about this, but let me give you some examples. Certainly bottled water. It was absolutely lightning in the bottle. An amazing, really invention, if you want to call it that, from Evian Perrier, where they come in and they start to look at hydration as being the key outcome of the beverage industry. Amazing that traditional soft drink companies, sports drinks and all, really battled against what was really a good trend. But a bottle of water was something that conventional wisdom did not endorse early on at all. You had a lot of business professors, a lot of executives in the consumer goods industry that were just panning this, saying this is awful, it won't work, who wants to buy a bottle of water? The chief executive officer for Coca-Cola couldn't believe that people were paying at the time $2 for a bottle of Evian water. They were. So it was amazing in terms of what it was able to do. This is one that I'm going to have to include because I think it was lightning in the bottle. One of the things that was interesting about the iPod, it was not a pretty product. I remember when it came out, there were magazines, there were commentaries in Silicon Valley that everybody followed. Said it was the ugliest device in the world. It's not anything that anybody would want. And you can see here in the last paragraph, they're big, clunky, small, useless. User interfaces were unbelievably awful. But it was actually, again, inspired by transistor radio. One that I had as a kid where you had the little dial and would move it back and forth with your thumb. It was an amazing design on transistor radio that found its way onto iPod. It absolutely revolutionized, I think, the music industry. And in fact, I'm gonna go so far as to say it saved it. The industry was not doing well. It was a lightning in a bottle type of idea. It absolutely was. It was amazing. It was incredible to do research around that project at the time. It was not for sure that it was going to be successful, but again, it just had all of the right things at the right time. I think also, if you think of Uber, we talked about it. Certainly, Uber's had its ups and downs, but the idea of being able to unlock a lot of potential transportation capacity out there was an amazing idea. I think more importantly, too, this is another one that I really like. Toy Story was absolutely a revolutionary idea. You could also put Sesame Street in here, but certainly one of the things that I feel pretty passionate about, and one of the things that I've seen a lot of innovation in over the years is children's programming. And certainly Toy Story was one of those that set a motif. It wasn't just Western toys. It wasn't cowboys, horses, and the Wild West. You had a space hero, Little Bo Peep, a dinosaur, a collection of toys that go on an adventure. They talk. They have feelings for each other. And it's absolutely an amazing story, something that I do think revolutionized movie making and the concept of what a story could be in animation. Every person that was an expert in the field said it was going to be a disaster. And I think that's the hard thing about conventional wisdom, is that they will point out the flaws in it, even though the numbers said this was going to be really good. Same with iPod. The numbers were just off the chart, but the experts in the music business said, oh, it'll never work. People want to listen to an album from beginning to end because it's the artist's story. No, it wasn't true. None of the numbers held that out. A lot of the research that was being done, it just didn't hold it out. It didn't make sense. And that's one of the things I really want to, emphasize to you. And it was one of the things that was talked about in that data visualization video. You have to look to data to learn, not to confirm. And I really keep that in my head all the time, even if I'm looking at numbers that are being released about pandemics or anything. I look to the numbers to learn, not to confirm. And you look to data to reveal insights, not to confirm biases. And it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. You almost have to tell yourself to do this all the time. But if you're able to do it, you'll get the insights that will open up lightning in a bottle and really reveal to you what's going on out there in today's world. And again, if you take a look at Yellow Brick Road these days, just a couple of companies that I think are really doing well. Certainly subscription video on demand, that's Yellow Brick Road. So Disney Plus, Netflix really led the way here. You got to give them credit for what they're doing, YouTube. But the idea that you get video on demand, HBO Go, Apple TV Plus, I think Disney Plus has done well. In fact, all of these, Hulu has done very, very well. But video on demand, that's Yellow Brick Road right now. That is absolutely something that conventional wisdom says will work, and numbers will say it works. Now, broadcast television will deny it. They will fight it. They will try to say it doesn't exist, but it does. And man, that model has really held up, given that the world has had to stay at home for a good bit of time here due to the pandemic. So it's amazing to watch this model really arise out of the ashes. And it really became lightning in the bottle and then quickly turned into Yellow Brick Road. I think Netflix, they had the lightning in the bottle idea, and certainly quickly followed by Hulu and HBO and then Amazon. But there are so many good services that are out there now. Roku, others that this is certainly today's Yellow Brick Road. One from a more traditional industry, I think IKEA really it qualifies as a good Yellow Brick Road type of organization these days. Really fits a lot of the trends among people that are furnishing homes for the first time, business professionals. Really, really interesting. They know their marketplace very, very well. They understand the furniture business very, very well. And so I would call them right now a Yellow Brick Road. Of course, as we talked about earlier, all of this can change at the drop of a hat. New outcomes can emerge. New industries can be born instantly. And it's really important to be able to try to understand how those changes are coming, what new businesses might be informed, might be created by these changes, and to be able to invent businesses perhaps in anticipation of changes in outcomes. Wow, that was an action-packed session. I love it. It's fun to think about these things. I hope your eyes have been opened a little bit to this. I still enjoy watching things and saying, that might be a march of folly, or reading about a company and saying, wow, lightning in the bottle, something that conventional wisdom has not endorsed yet, but it seems like a really good idea. Have fun with this, think about it, but more importantly, don't leave it behind. When you are working in your leadership role, think about this all the time of how we interpret chains of logic, how we interpret data and analytics, and how we forecast the next thing that might be coming in the marketplace. Well, that's all for this broadcast. The next time we meet, we're going to talk about managing projects. We're going to talk about, we're going to go into the past. So, all of this course is so geared to the future. What's been done in the past that was done very, very well? We're going to look at the Wright brothers and their amazing journey of invention. Until then, I hope you're well. Always stay on the solution side of the equation, and I will see you next time.